Hi, everyone, and welcome to our third volunteer quarterly training. This is going to be our second to last training of the year. The next one will be sometime in October. In this quarterly training, what we covered was Somalian and Muslim Culture Corner. So that was a really fun presentation given by our program director, Aidan Batar. I'll show you some pictures from that. But for the majority of this training, we discussed de-escalation and resettlement. And then we covered some volunteering updates. So I'll go over all of those with you. And then the Somalian and Muslim Culture Corner, the presentations that Batar gave, we will add as separate presentations within this form. So after watching this video, you can go and look through those on your own time. So here are some pictures of some of our volunteers at training. It was really fun. We were able to interact. We enjoyed some delicious Somalian food from Horn of Africa while we learned about that culture. And it was just fun to participate. So moving forward, we will always do a culture corner in addition to our training that we cover. So we'll start with the culture corner and go into the training so you guys can get to know a little bit about the backgrounds that our clients come from. So today's lesson is, again, de-escalation and resettlement. So this training was presented by the International Rescue Committee's Kaya Connect. So it's kind of like their training website. So they have a large library of different trainings that you can take, and you can get certified in different things. So this is kind of what that certificate of completion looks like. I will provide a link if you want to get certified in de-escalation and resettlement. So I've gone through the entire training myself and kind of summarized it down to today's lesson. So just starting with de-escalation, the reason that we're talking about it is because it's super important, and it's a way of communicating with the clients when they're very upset, angry, frustrated, or distressed. So when people think of de-escalation, they often see it in fields like policing, where they have to bring a intense situation down. So it's designed to help people move towards calm, is how it is explained, so that they're better able to cope, listen, act, or engage. And the reason that we're discussing it in this training is that our clients, our refugee clients, they've experienced a lot of trauma and repeated trauma. And on top of that, they're under so much stress as they integrate into society here, trying to find jobs, paying their bills, adjusting to the new culture. There's just so much on our clients that they're under a lot of stress. So their bodies are on higher alert because of this intensity of the stress, and they can more easily and quickly get escalated more often. So we're going to be talking about it today, not because it will happen and you will have to use some of these tools, but so if you ever experience one of these situations, you will know how to address it. So there is real effects of our behavior when we are escalated. So our brain, when we're in a distressed state, very little of it is working. And the areas that are working are those areas that detect and react to threats. So people are going to be much quicker to snap and just looking for danger, basically. So this little GIF here shows what a brain in a distressed state looks like. So you'll see it's not very active, but then over here, the brain on the right is a lot more active with a lot more areas of the brain firing. And so all of those different parts are working together, and that is helping that person experiencing whatever they're experiencing to notice and make connections. So they're able to use more logic and reasoning and just better comprehend the entire situation as opposed to reacting to some kind of threat only. So this is the state that our brains are in when we're escalated. So what that means is we often in an escalated state are reacting to what we're perceiving is happening versus what is actually happening. So the best way to think about it in the scenario, of our clients is, let's say you are a mentor and you want to take your client out to the mall to experience, the mall. It's a really good learning activity. So you guys go to the mall and you approach a security guard or a mall cop and you want to ask them the hours of the mall. Your mentee may perceive that you approaching the mall cop or the security guard is you going to get them in trouble for some reason. So this can happen because a lot of our clients may have had negative experiences with law enforcement in their own countries or even here. So it's important that we just understand that they're reacting to what they're perceiving versus what is actually happened. So it's almost like a trauma-based response. So the client may, run away and scream, and you may just stand there thinking, "What just happened?" But it's them not being able to fully capture what's happening. They're just reacting to what they're perceiving is happening. So it's an intense situation, but this happens regularly, just in smaller situations. But it really kind of helps you picture what's going on. How we respond, it's really important to respond appropriately because it could make or break your relationship with the client. So, in the training today, we're going to cover the 5 core actions of de escalation. And the first of those is to evaluate. You have to evaluate the situation first, then listen, validate, plan, and prevent. So, those are the 5 core actions of de escalation, and we will go ahead and dive into evaluate. So, with evaluate, why is it important? You first need to even understand if de escalation is appropriate. And the way you can do that is by asking yourself some of these questions. So, you want to ask yourself, and you're doing this very quickly while you're evaluating the situation, is anyone in immediate danger? Do I know the individual who's in an escalated state? Is there any threat of violence or self harm? Is the person that's escalated under the influence of drugs or alcohol? And then the last one is the person in a state of psychosis? There could be other questions that you ask yourself to determine if de escalation is appropriate. But these 5 here are a pretty good approach to understanding if de escalation is appropriate. So if you answer yes to any of these, de-escalation is not going to be appropriate. And the reason is when we're in an escalated state, it's already really difficult to reason or to comprehend the situation. So if there's any kind of threat or violence, if someone's under the influence, it's not going to be appropriate to take the steps to de-escalate. It's best to just get the proper people involved if you need to call the authorities, just to make sure that everyone is safe. So if you answer no to those questions, the next thing you will do to de-escalate the situation is listen. Listening is super, super important. As listening is in any conversation, you want to be engaged and you want to listen to what the client is saying and what their behavior is communicating, because those could be 2 different things, right? So both listen to what they're saying, but also take a bigger picture of what their behavior is communicating. Taken as a whole, then you'll determine what the client is trying to convey to you. And something else that's really important is as you're listening, it's really important to remain calm. When people are in escalated states, they may say or do things that are not necessarily true of you or of a situation, but it's not easy. But just try not to take anything personally. The last thing, the least helpful thing in this situation with an escalated person is to get escalated yourself or become defensive. So, really listen to the client, determine what's going on as the whole picture, and remain calm. When you're listening, you also want to listen for the implicit message. So we'll go over an example here because there's explicitly what the client is, the message that they're getting across. But then under that is the implicit fears or frustrations that they're feeling. So with this housing example, the client may state, explicitly that they're worried about filling out a housing application. They're frustrated with the process and they continue to talk about the housing form and the difficulty filling it out. So it's very clear what the client is upset about. However, when you dig a little deeper, the implicit fears and what's implicitly being stated by the client is that they're concerned about losing their housing and becoming homeless, right? It's this situation of the absolute worst thing happening is what seems like it could happen because they've experienced so much trauma. So these deeper and more profound fears is what we have to get to the root of, and they're under the concern. So that's when the other tools come in handy here. Something that's just important, I took this away from the training. I think it really summarizes everything. Being effective in restoring calm is more important than being right. This is a really good summary of how you should approach de escalation. All you are trying to do is restore calm so that the client can create a plan and a solution with you. You don't want to point out who's right or wrong. We just want to bring people back to a neutral state. After you've evaluated, you've listened, it is now time to validate. So, validation, again, super important. As are these are just basic communication skills of engaging, listening, validating. So, when people feel seen and heard, it's much easier to return them to calm. If you say the wrong thing, you might escalate that person more. So, be mindful, right? Different ways that we can validate is just attention, presence, giving the verbal sounds like yes, yes, just indicating that you are listening. Another thing that is really helpful is to summarize what the client has said back to them so that they can know that you understand what they're saying. First, it lets them know you're listening, but also when we're working with clients whose English is their second language, it's really helpful to sometimes repeat back to the client what you understood because it may or may not be what the client was attempting to get across. So, for that reason, too, it's important. Another thing, going back to the implicit versus explicit, you want to recognize any unspoken thoughts or reflections. So, again, just mention to the client, I know you're super frustrated with this housing form and you must be afraid of losing your home. Just recognizing that those deep and profound fears are real because of the trauma that they've experienced. And bringing in, the client's history, kind of bringing in some of that trauma, not directly pointing it out, but saying things like, given what's happened to you, it's normal to feel this way. I'm sorry after all that you've gone through that it continues to be a struggle. Just letting the clients know that you hear them and you see them can really do a lot. Oops. Okay. So here's a scenario, and I will go ahead and unfortunately play the role of both Nima and Kurt. When we were in person, we had two volunteers that did a really good job of playing Nima and Kurt. So good job to them. But today you will have me for both. So after we go through this scenario, we will have two responses that Kurt can give Nima, and we'll discuss why one is better than the other. So, starting here, Nima says, I hate that school and I just don't understand the other students. Kurt, you mean you don't understand what they're saying? I mean, I understand the words, but I don't understand what they're talking about. All these names and the things they do, it's just so weird and boring to me. Well, it will get better, says Kurt. Nima, it will get better. Kurt, yeah, over time, things will get better for you. Nima, why does everyone keep saying that to me? Like, how will it get better? And when? Should I just be miserable until then? I should just what? Sit around hating this and thinking, don't worry, Nima, it'll get better. Your mom says so. Your teacher says so. Kurt says so. Just be patient and sit alone in your room, waiting for this magical day where it all somehow gets better. And until then, what? So, what are your first reactions to what happened in this scenario? A lot of you may be feeling like Kurt maybe said the wrong thing. Kurt didn't really validate what Nima was feeling. He kind of just brushed off her concerns. So we can tell that Nima got more and more escalated throughout the conversation. So some responses. The first response, Kurt could say, you're totally right. That was really dismissive of me. I'm sorry. Let me start over. I don't know what it's like to begin again in a new school, in a new country, and speaking a new language. It must be so hard for you. So the second response that Kurt could give is saying, until then, it's going to take time. You have to be more patient. You can't expect everything to be as comfortable as it was at home for you. You're going to have to adjust, and the quicker you do that, the easier it will be. I'm just trying to be straight with you. So, of these two responses, which do you think is the most appropriate for Kurt to give? My guess is the correct answer is response one. So, the reason that it's not response two, starting with everything that's wrong, again, it's just very dismissive. It's a little too blunt, and the clients don't need to be told things like this. They need support. Clients already are aware that it's going to be difficult. You don't need to remind them. They're very aware. They are the ones that are experiencing it firsthand. So you don't need to remind them that it's going to be difficult. What you can do is acknowledge their feelings and the frustrations that they're feeling. So response one is much better. And the reason also that response one is much better is it is validating Nima's emotions. And not only that, it's also acknowledging that Kurt initially messed up. So Kurt apologizes and says, I'm sorry, that was very dismissive of me. Let me say this, right? So it's okay to accidentally be dismissive of a client's concerns, but as long as you apologize and recognize it, that can really build your relationship with the client. All right, so what we are going to do now. So you will get to the state plan once you have successfully de-escalated the client. So you do not want to start creating plans with the client and problem solving if your client is still in an escalated state. So by now you will have listened to the client, you will have validated, and once they are brought back down, now you can begin to plan. So the best things to do is to focus on what you yourself can do to ease the client's frustrations. Don't focus on other people. Don't focus about big picture. It's a lot easier to focus on the here and the now, especially when a client has just experienced a lot of intense emotions. It's a lot easier and you'll be a lot more successful if you bring it back down to some smaller achievable goals that you can help with. Something that's also really important is do not decide for yourself what this plan is going to be. Decide together as a mentor and mentee. Ask your clients, what is the most important thing we can do right now to make you feel better? Is it getting this leaky sink fixed at your housing? Is it following up with your case manager? Is it this thing, right? So ask your client what thing of theirs takes priority, because there can be so many things that need solutions that when we break them piece by piece, it can be a lot better and easier to manage. Another thing to remind yourself of is there's not always a clear solution, whether that means you're waiting on other people, you're waiting on a system like documents to come in or appointments to become available. There's not always a clear solution, but just listening to your client voice those frustrations and vent and hearing them and acknowledging them can really go a long way. Another thing is we want to hear from you. So after you experience one of these situations, just debrief with us and also on the other volunteers on your team if you're in a family mentor group. Let us know here in the office if there's some follow-ups that require our attention, or if there's not and you were able to handle it, just let us know like, hey, client experienced this, just wanted to let you know that we were able to take care of it. It's always just good to be kept in the loop. So once you plan, the last step is prevention. So prevention is very important, but prevention can also be tricky, right? What we want to do is prevent the client from getting in those heightened states, but that requires a lot more than just talking to clients. So what you can do is help connect clients to additional resources. That's a really good way to prevent heightened stress and heightened emotions in clients. Escalated ones, I should say. And the reason that it can help prevent it is if the client knows exactly where the resource is and they're able to identify themselves, they could go directly to them and problem solve on their own and not have to encounter block after block. So that's always helpful. connecting the clients to social support and or mental health support. We do have a mental health coordinator. Her name is Brittany Steenhook in the office. So if you are ever concerned about a client's mental health, um, you can communicate it to Brittany. It's always best if the client communicates that themselves. You don't necessarily want to tell your client that you think they have mental health issues. That is actually really something that would break down your relationship. So that's why I say prevention can be a little bit tricky because we don't want to trigger people and say things that may make them feel like we're coming at them, um, assuming, that like we're attacking their behavior or their health, stuff like that. So it's a really fine line. So the best things you could do, point the client to resources, and have a lot more frequent check-ins. That's something you can always check in and follow up on what the issue was. Follow up on it, be like, hey, Nima, how are you feeling? I know school had been really hard for you. How have things gotten better? What can I do to support you moving forward? That's a really good way to support clients to prevent it from escalating again. And then creating a safety plan that identifies someone besides yourself as additional personal support for them. So this person could be another family member of theirs, another volunteer, or someone in their community that they trust and know. And this is just another person to say to them, if I'm ever not available and you're feeling all these frustrations and emotions, you can call this person. Or I know your sister really cares for you. Maybe we can talk to your sister and see if when you're in this state, if she can help you problem solve, right? So creating a safety plan. So that's the chunk of the de-escalation in resettlement training. I do want to go over one more scenario that kind of just summarizes everything and play that for you all. If you would like to take this training yourself, you can go to it here. I'll also paste the link in a more accessible area, but you'll just create a account on Kaya Connect, and the training itself is called De-escalation and Resettlement, Asylum, and Integration Settings. And what I want to go over with you guys is this interaction here. So what's been happening in this story, this is the training over here, is that Marouche and Paola, so Marouche is a client and Paola works for the resettlement agency. Marouche has been experiencing some faint spells, and Paola has been helping to get her an appointment scheduled. Marouche has been frustrated about having to wait so long to get an appointment with the neurologist, but that appointment has finally come. So that is where we're starting off today. So the day of Marouche's appointment with her neurologist finally arrives, but she becomes concerned she won't make it on time after she misses the bus she planned to take. So we're going to go ahead and practice some scenarios and see what the correct approach would be. So Marouche calls Paola and says, Paola, it's Marouche. Things are going terribly wrong. I missed the bus and now I'm standing here at the stop and the next bus is not coming. I can't miss my appointment, Paola. I've waited so long for this. Could you please come pick me up? Which of these two responses do you think are most appropriate? 1, I'm sorry I can't help you right now, but I know you, I trust you, and I have complete faith that you can figure this out without me. Or number 2, you sound really worried, Marouche. Were you able to check the bus schedule and see if another one is coming? Of these two responses, the best one would probably be the second, but for the sake of learning, we're going to go ahead and select the first one and see how Marouche responds to that. So Marouche says, I really don't think I can do this, Paula. Can't you come get me? Okay, so what it's telling us now is that expressing confidence in a client's abilities to do something on their own is great, but in that specific moment, Marouche really needed more support than the confidence boost. So she needed some kind of, concrete action or a course of action that she can follow. So Marouche responds a bit more escalated now, and she says, I thought it was your job to help me, and I need your help to get there. And again, we can go one of two ways. We can say, "You're an extremely capable person, Marouche. I just know you can figure this out on your own." Or two, "It is my job to help you, and I know how important this is. Tell me, were you able to look at the bus schedule to see what the next one is coming?" So I'm sure that you all know that this second one is the correct one. Again, it's giving a concrete solution. But we'll go ahead and click the first one for sake of learning. Um, Marouche says, "I'm glad you think I'm capable, Paola, but I really don't know how to figure this out." Okay, so the client is expressing, "I really don't know. What's the point of this anyway? I just feel like giving up, you know? I don't see how I can make it there on time. The doctor probably won't even help anyway. I give up." So Marouche has gotten more and more escalated. So really your responses can help either bring the client down or frustrate them a little bit more. So being mindful is really important. So it's going to take us back to that first, again, best option, which is, "I hear how worried you are about this, Marouche. I don't want you to give up. Have you checked the bus schedule?" Okay. So Marouche says, "I was able to check the schedule on my phone. The next bus is supposed to be here in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That is good news. But I'm still going to be late," says Marouche. "This is what happened before with my daughter. I don't think this is a good job for you, Paola. Otherwise, I don't think you would keep putting my family and me in these terrible situations." So this is some of those untrue statements, that can come from clients in an escalated state. But remember, the client, you did everything you can. They may say things, but it's really, really important that we don't try and become defensive. We just want to continue to listen and validate the client. So we could say, "What happened with your daughter's appointment wasn't my fault, Marouche. We were given incorrect information about the doctor we needed to see." Or we can say, "We've experienced that our healthcare system is pretty broken in a lot of ways. Your daughter's experience wasn't great, but it did still work out." So the second one is going to be the correct one. The reason that this first one isn't great, and we'll just click it here just to see her reaction. The client says, "I really thought I was welcome in this country." So obviously the client didn't take that response well. And that is because the person in this scenario, Paola, focused on defending herself instead of acknowledging the client. So again, validate, don't become defensive. Now Marouche says, "I thought people wanted us here, but I was wrong. Why is it so impossible to get the healthcare I need? I should just return to my home country." What Paola is going to say now is, "We've experienced that our healthcare system is pretty broken in a lot of ways. Your daughter's experience wasn't great, but it still worked out." So this is something that is actually very common and likely to happen, especially the way that our healthcare system is set up in the United States, and not just the United States, but in resettlement and in the grants that provide the funds for our health team to do what they do. We're required to go to one of two clinics in the valley. They may have just added a third, but that's only in Ogden. For Ogden clients. So if you think about it, all of our clients have to do all of their initial health screenings at one of two clinics. It's a lot of people. So sometimes these appointments are 4 months out, and that is really hard. So what I will say in this situation, we'll see how everything goes, but I'll offer some other things that you can do as a mentor in the situation. All right. Namarush says, "Yes, but it was so difficult and extremely frustrating. I wish getting healthcare wasn't this hard. I don't think it should be like this, but if this is the only way, I guess I have no choice." You're showing how strong you are by sticking with it, even though it's definitely frustrating. So let's see it through and get you on the next bus. Paula went back to acknowledging the client, bringing some of their own personal experience into it, and going back to a concrete action, which is getting her on the bus. So now we're going to go ahead and listen to how Marouche handles this situation next. Marouche.
Here I am, waiting again. Since I began this journey, 3 years ago, so much of it is just waiting for my name to be called. And at first, feeling hopeful because I thought, yes, your name could be called Muruj, and then finally you will be given what you deserve, a life somewhere that's better than here, and you will have earned it. When your name is finally called, it will be because you're worthy. You, me, who has lived through all of this, who has waited. But I wait and nothing ever comes. I don't want to be here anymore, Paula. I'm tired of waiting.
I think most people would feel the same way. It is so hard to be kept waiting. The woman at the front desk told me that the doctor is very busy today, but that they should be able to squeeze us into some open time for emergencies that he has scheduled soon. We just need to wait a little more.
I told you, I'm tired of waiting. You're just too nice, Paula. You aren't fighting, not hard enough. And I thought your job was to fight for me. You need to push. Why can't you do that for me? Let me go talk to her. The time for waiting is over. Now is the time to push.
Okay, so we can tell Marouche is still in an escalated state. So, how should Paola respond to her? She could say, Marouche, you are free to go talk to the receptionist whenever you'd like. She can say, let's try to relax a little, Marouche. The doctor won't see you if you're this upset, and yelling won't help anyone. Or she can say, I know how frustrating this is since I just spoke to the receptionist. Do you think we could wait 5 minutes and then go talk to her together? So it's definitely not the second one. If you've ever told someone to relax a little, that's the last thing that they will do. So the correct answer is the third one. She acknowledges how Marouche is feeling, and she addresses like a core or a concrete action, that they could do together. So moving forward, so Paula and Rouge plan to go up together after 5 minutes if they don't hear anything. Having the short-term plan helps Marouge remain calm. So, unfortunately, this is what happens next. The front desk staff member says, I'm sorry, we thought we'd be able to see you today, but unfortunately, there's been an emergency and the doctor's been called away. Marouche says, this can't be true. No, I refuse to accept it. Please, I have to see the doctor. The front desk says, I'm sorry this happened. Let's get you set with another appointment. Unfortunately, the next opening is 4 weeks from today. Marouche says, 4 weeks, but you told me I could see him today. Was that a lie? Paola said, I'm sure they're trying to do their best. Marouche responds, well, they are doing a terrible job. I waited 5 weeks for this appointment. Why is this so hard? Is it this hard for everyone? Paola says, I know you are frustrated and how hard this is. Marouche says, that is an understatement, Paola. I just don't know what to do. I give up. I'll just fall on the floor and hit my head, and maybe one day I won't wake up, and that will be easier. But my daughter, Paula says, given all you've gone through, Marouche, it's fair that you're feeling frustrated and hopeless. Can we take a moment to sit over here by the window? Okay. So what Paula did in that situation was appropriate. She handled everything as best as she could. They were put in a really tough spot. She was late for the appointment. She's been waiting for the appointment. And then the doctor has a busy schedule and something happens and she isn't able to be seen. So things just were not working out. And this happens sometimes. But what Paola did correctly is she took an opportunity to get them both to step away from the situation for a moment, to take a breath, and form a new plan given the new circumstances. So, this is going to be that conversation.
Specialist, okay?
Okay, Paula.
Oops, sorry.
Why did we walk away? Now I'll never get another appointment.
We'll get you another appointment before we leave here today. But first, I want to check in with you. This has been a long ordeal with an outcome that isn't great. So how are you feeling?
My fainting spells have just been getting worse. I thought maybe today we could find out why they are happening. I thought maybe things would start to get better after today.
I know.
So I'm feeling like I've felt every day since I've arrived here. Hopeless. I already abandoned the dream I had before I came here, but now I think I have a clearer idea of what life is going to be like here. And I don't like the idea I have now.
This is a scary time. Fainting is scary. Falling in front of your daughter is terrifying. I'm not gonna give up on getting you this appointment. Let's go back in there, and together we'll explain your situation, and maybe we can get them to find a sooner appointment once they understand, or maybe even send us to another specialist, okay?
Okay, Paula.
Okay. So Marouche still isn't too happy about what's happened, but Paula has successfully de-escalated the situation, and she's come up with a plan to work together with the client to find a new appointment. So just throughout this entire situation, um, Paola's responses, you can tell they dictated whether Marouche would have a heightened response or a more calm response. So, given what you say to the client can really affect how they respond. When we do validate clients and make them feel seen, they're able to bring themselves down to a more calm state where they can use logic and reasoning. So multiple times throughout one conversation, you could go from a calm state back up to escalated, calm state back up to escalated, and that's okay. It's just important that you keep exercising the same listen and validate techniques before you come to a plan. Or you could come up with multiple plans throughout. It just depends on the circumstance. Another thing I will say, another solution in this scenario is, fainting is really scary, and we want to make sure that the clients get the care that they need. And although they might not be able to see the specialist in an emergent situation, they could totally go to an emergency room or urgent care. And we likely know that they won't be able to find anything that day. But if they do, or even if they don't, the client will feel a little bit more comfortable just knowing that they were seen and that they were prioritized. So that's it for this training. Well, actually, that's it for that training. There will be quiz questions in the rest of this form, so you'll finish those out. I will go ahead now and share my screen again. I cannot. Where is my mouse? Okay, I am sorry about that. Give me just one second here. I just want to go over a few final things with you all. The first thing is that Duply, again, is the website that we use for all of our volunteering. You should be super familiar with it. We have restructured and reorganized some of the different things. So shout out to Sally on our team who helped with this. If you aren't logged in, this is all you will be able to see. A welcome page, a cultural learning tab, and the contact page. Once you log in, however, and you can ignore some of my features because I have admin access, but this is going to show you what yours should look like once you click the home button. So here is where you have the calendar with all the open opportunities. Cultural learning will have cultural backgrounders on different countries, a cultural etiquette overview, and just some other really helpful resources. There's also language glossaries to help with just some basic language skills. Then we have an overview of the programs in addition to specific training for those programs. And then the tab that I'm most excited about is this volunteer resource tab, which has been organized. It used to all just fall under one family mentors page, but now it's a bit more organized. So you can see that each of our teams in refugee resettlement will have their own page. So this is the case management page, and then you will find the resources according to what program they fall under. So here is a lot of information on the Utah Refugee Center, some financial aid and SNAP benefits eligibility, how to obtain a license, and just some different things here. If we look at health services, we'll have any kind of spotlights on the department or trainings that we've had on the left-hand side. And then again, we'll have some resources here. This is the Navigating the Healthcare System curriculum, so you can go over that with your clients. And then I'll show you one or two more. I'll show you the cultural orientation one. This is really important. Cultural orientation is something as a volunteer that you can really support because you can reiterate or reteach some of these things that are covered in a cultural orientation adult education class. So go ahead, look through what CCS teaches here. This is going to be super helpful for you to have an understanding of. And then finally, the contact page, you can find the full staff contact list here. So know that that is where you will go now. It's not all in one area anymore. It is kind of separated. So hopefully you will enjoy that a bit better. And then wrapping up here, just some few final updates. Log your hours. We did receive an audit recently, and I hate that we're not able to show some of the really important interactions that you have with clients because that shows their gradual success and how they integrate and how they learn. So please log your hours. Your hours are very important. I sent out a survey. We want to expand partnerships with faith and non-faith groups. So if you want to partner or collaborate in any way, you can fill that out or send me an email. And then finally, we're looking into relying on volunteers to help us purchase the initial groceries that we give to our clients during when they first arrive. So we usually will get them 3 to 4 days worth of groceries. That's usually covers until they receive their SNAP, their electronic benefit transfer cards to pay for their food. So we'll get those meals. Usually we have a gift card or a card that we will give to volunteers to be able to go and purchase items from a list. It's just something that will really ease up time for our case managers and our other staff here. And it's something that I think would be really meaningful for a volunteer to do. And we're also looking for volunteers to help with welcome meals. So if you're interested in either of those, please send me an email. I'll put you on my list of people who are interested because it's important that the volunteers that we get for this trial run of purchasing the initial groceries and the welcome meal are people that we can really rely on because the food is one of the most important parts and we don't want to miss that. So that is everything. You'll go ahead and complete the quiz attached to this survey form and the other two presentations. We appreciate you and we really hope we can